Welcome to the podcast Venture Capital in Scandinavia. My name is Esben, and I have worked in the venture space for the last 8 years, both as an investor and an operator. In this podcast, we will explore both trends, opportunities, and challenges from both the Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian ecosystems, and we'll focus on venture capital both from the investor side and from the companies who receive venture capital funding, and we will keep a strong focus on the Scandinavian countries.
Timing almost couldn't have been worse in terms of fundraising. So to actually manage to pull that off, I find quite impressive in itself.
So what we wanted to do was to create momentum and get to a first close. But because before we had a first close, we didn't have money.
Do you basically have to be loaded to do this, or live with your parents, or like how do you actually do it?
We're building Node as it would be like we would build a startup. And that means, having like low salary, maybe eating noodles. Like I've snuck into events, like fundraising events, because I was like, we can't afford buying a ticket. And I think that makes it fun as well. It's like VC, it's a high risk, high reward game. And we invest in startups. That's high risk, high reward. And starting a VC fund is high risk, high reward.
In this episode, we are joined by Rebecca Sjödin, who is a co-founder and investment principal at Node VC, which is a Stockholm-based early-stage venture capital fund. And what is particularly interesting about Node VC is that they recently closed their first fund at 71 million euros, which is very impressive, especially in this market. So I'm super curious to talk to Rebecca today and hear a little bit more about this. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Esben. I'm so happy to be here. It's very exciting.
I will just jump straight into it with the first question. So I mentioned it in the intro. You were part of raising this early stage fund, and from what I have heard and sort of sensed in the market in the last couple of years, the timing almost couldn't have been worse in terms of fundraising. So to actually manage to pull that off, I find quite impressive in itself. Could you just talk us through this experience of fundraising in general, and especially in this market?
Yeah, great. I would love to. And a little background: we started Node 2.5 years ago, and as you mentioned, is the worst possible timing to hey, let's come together and start a VC fund. But it's been a lot of hard work, but it's also just so much fun. So we're 8 people that are based in Stockholm, like you mentioned, but we actually are an extended team of more people. So we do have venture partners, venture advisors, and venture scouts to cover all the Nordics. So we are sector agnostic fund that invests in pre-seed to A in the Nordics. So that's where we specialize, the Nordic region. And 2.5 years we came together and didn't have money, didn't have salary or anything. So we were like, okay, let's go.
Because Rebecca, maybe just to sorry to interrupt, but you said you got together and where do you start with this, right? The previous episode we were talking about fundraising from the sort of the operator side, from the startup side. Here's fundraising from a fund side. Where do you start? You said you spent, did you say 2.5 years, right? It's a bit longer, hopefully, than most startups have to spend in fundraising. What sort of, when you get together, what are the first discussions and what are the first things you set out to do to even figure out if there's interest in this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So yeah, we were 8 people that came together 2.5 years ago and didn't have money and was like, okay, is this even going to work? But actually and I'd like to mention that what makes us, I would say, strong in the ecosystem, and everyone come from different backgrounds, but we have majority of the team have built companies and scaled tech products for over 20 years in the Nordics, and from startup to IPO. So they've been fundraising from the startup side. Now it's time to fundraise from the VC side. But so what we started to do was just build a pitch deck, and then populating the data room, and then initiating dialogues from the beginning with Some Invest, which is the Swedish governmental vehicle that invests in VC funds.
Were they the first ones you approached, or did you also, because you mentioned you have backing from a lot of what do you call entrepreneurs, angels? So do you go to them first, or do you go to in this case Some Invest first? Where and do you send that pitch, or is I'm just so curious about how it actually sort of I've been fundraising from the startup side, but never from a fund side, so to say.
Yeah, and this was actually my first time as well fundraising. I used to work like investment banking, family office, and now it was time to do something for real. And it is a lot of hard work. Like I'm very humble to the experience that both founders experience when fundraising and also for funds. Yeah, so for us, we knew Some Invest because the team have been investing both as angel investors and in other investment vehicles from before, so they knew Some Invest. So we knew that from the beginning we want them on board because Some Invest being local, they're also able to take risk to be part of first close. So what we wanted to do was to create momentum and get to a first close. But because before we had a first close, we didn't have money and we didn't exist. So for us, it was just like from the beginning important to get to this first close. And how can we build momentum to do this first close and to do it at a significant amount. So what we did was, initiate the dialogues with Some Invest and understand, their process, what they need from us. And respectfully, they take time. Like they're big institutions. They invest a big ticket. So 100% that it takes time. So for us, it was like, whatever you need, we'll give it to you.
And what could that be like? So what are the things? I guess there's some you have to prove that you know how to allocate capital but what are some examples of actual questions that also things you have to prove? Because as first time fund managers, right? I guess you try to look for something that's fairly similar. What have you done as angels? What have you done before? What's the sort of the split in the team, or like what are the things you would have to sort of prove to them?
Exactly, and that's a very good question. And I think as a first time, and even though I always say like we're old, but in this constellation, it's a first time team. But as you mentioned, like we do have a track record. Every person has their own track record, either if it is as an angel investor or in another vehicle, then we have that track record and we have to give that. And also just the pitch deck and really be thorough in the pitch deck to explain what's your reason for existing in the ecosystem. It is a competitive world out there, and why should they allocate the money to you? Why should you exist? What do you bring to the table? But from us, as one of our key reasons for existing in the ecosystem, why we came together is that majority of the team have this hands-on operational experience and this entrepreneurial experience in building tech companies, and to really show that in the pitch deck, because we really believe that that's where we can stand out in the ecosystem, but also add value to the portfolio companies that we support.
That makes sense. There was one other thing that I remember being a couple of years ago, the markets were a bit better and I was very naive. And I approached a friend in a VC fund and I said, I'm considering raising a fund. I said, that's cool. Just know that I went 2 years without a salary and I had made much money before. I'm like, okay, maybe I won't try to do that. When you meet, you said you're 8 people. You've been going at this for 2.5 years. I'm curious about do you sit down in the beginning and say, okay, now we're going to give it a go. We have a deadline on this, or if you're in for this period, or how does that actually work? Because it's a long time without salary. And I mean, in that period, is it a full-time job, or could you do advisory or consultancy on the side? Do you basically have to be loaded to do this, or live with your parents, or how do you actually do it?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and I think VC, it's a high risk, high reward game, and we invest in startups. That's high risk, high reward, and starting an VC fund is high risk, high reward. I think for us, we did our first close 8 months after we started, and when we had first close, we were able to give some more safety, pay some more salaries, and we had a fund. So that's what I mentioned. We really wanted to create momentum for this first close. But in the beginning, that was everyone's on board. First close, let's see how it goes.
And do you set then a deadline? You say first close has to happen within 1 year or 18 months, or
yeah. And I mean, you can do first close with how much little money you want. For us, we were able to pull it off first close with 2/3 of the target fund. And that was also a little just pacing where Some Invest, their process, how when they were able to go in and be a cornerstone investor. So like when we came together, that's what was our focus then, to get some invest in then get a first close and do a first close at an amount that is, showing strength in the market, that like we actually did this and we pulled it off. But then yes, like you said, like it does take time, this like building a VC fund, and it's a lot of hard work. And we're lucky to have people that have been entrepreneurs and made an exit in an IPO and trade sale, whatever. And they've been able to really, support the fund by, not taking salaries and stuff, and like have very low salaries. But I think that's good. I mean, it's we're entrepreneurs ourselves. We're building Node as it would be like we would build a startup. And that means, having like low salary, maybe eating noodles. Like I've snuck into events, like fundraising events, because I was like, we can't afford buying a ticket. And like, I bought a t-shirt with my own money with Node VC, because it's like we can't afford like the fund economics. So it's like it is, and I think that makes it fun as well. Like it makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, I guess also perhaps a little bit of understanding then when you're meeting startups in this situation, that this has been sort of your startup, maybe a slightly different version, but still nonetheless a startup. And Rebecca, I was also curious because you said this yourself, there are many great funds. There are quite a lot of capital in the Nordics now. And if there's one of the sort of, at least the 3 Scandinavian markets that has a lot of funds with great reputation, it's Sweden. When you pitch both to your LPs, but also to startups, how do you position Node VC as something new, different, hopefully better? Like what's the value prop that makes the hot founder that has 10 term sheets on the table pick Node VC as part of that investment?
I think pitching to LPs and startups is different. For me, these last 2.5 years, I've been like so deep dive into this fundraising mode and meeting all kinds of different LPs. And for me, in the beginning, I made so many mistakes, but now that I've done it for a while, I really try to understand.
Can I just ask what would be like? I'm just curious that you have to give us all the mistakes, but I'm curious, like what did you learn? Like what was something that, what were like what is an example of a mistake that was made?
I mean, a lot. I mean, you try and fail fast, I guess. But I mean, mistake. I mean, I see everything as lessons, like learning opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
I think one mistake I've made was, so for 12 months, I actually counted this. For 12 months, I traveled every month to a different country for a fundraising event. So, and one time I was in France, I had this red Node VC t-shirt. I was hanging in the lobby because that's what VCs usually do if they're too cheap to buy tickets to the actual event, which we were. So I was hanging in the lobby, and then the next day, my friend, whatever, gave me his ticket to the conference. So I snuck in, and the conference arrangers saw me, and they were like, "What are you doing here? You don't have a ticket. Whose badge is that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a can I just be here for like an hour?" And you're like, "No, like you can't do this. This is not okay." So I was like, "Oh shit." I was crying. It's a little embarrassing, actually. So yeah, I mean, I don't recommend doing that. Like, don't sneak in. Like, hang in the lobby, but don't sneak in.
Oh.
Yeah, but then, mistakes. I mean, I think what we've done is, since we wanted to create the momentum for first close, we've been targeting the people that are, faster, quicker to decision. So angel investors, family offices or entrepreneurs. And we've been targeting them by hosting breakfast, where we've presented the Nordic market and just what is like investing in a VC fund. And these breakfasts we've held both in Sweden and other countries. And sometimes they're very well attended. Sometimes they're not. And then it kind of feels like a failure when you're standing there and like. Yeah, okay, 2 people came, and one was relevant, one was just there for the food.
Snuck in. Oh.
Yeah.
I've been waiting in the lobby.
That was, I mean, it's a learning opportunity to like, okay, maybe, work more on your guest list than before hosting and like planning a trip and stuff.
But it's and it's not to ask you to pour out all your failures, but it's or like learnings. I think it's very interesting, and it's very sort of makes it relatable, right, to hear about all these things that a lot of the things that you would also hear again many startups have to go through to try to secure funding, right? But also, how is that like? So first of all, the market, if it was 2.5 years ago, the market must, if I don't remember incorrect, the market was pretty bad already then, right? Yeah. Did you feel? I mean, you haven't raised a fund before, so I don't know if you had anything to compare it to. But were there in any ways where you felt like, wow, this is just the market is also really like against us right now?
Yeah, no, I felt that from the beginning. We actually, just a few months after we started Node, we then went to Superventure, which I personally love, actually. I think Slush and Superventure, like Slush for meeting startups and co-investors, and Superventure for meeting LPs is just my favorite like happenings of the year. I love it. But going there and meeting all, not all, but a lot of LPs interested in venture, because otherwise I wouldn't be here. And then hearing from them that they are, either fully allocated to the private markets or focusing on existing relationships or fundraising themselves, we just realized like, fuck, sorry, but like we have to, if we're going to get to this first close, like we have to do something, like, we have to work very hard and find our ways to navigate this landscape. We can't trust on all these like who we in the beginning thought, were the institutions that would invest in us. There are funds like fund of funds out there that have a strategy in investing in emerging managers and stuff, but that window was kind of closed. So
sorry, I'm curious, like, because you come from investment banking, so you have probably done your fair share of like research, analysis, due diligence, all of this. And going into a fundraising process like this, how much analysis can you do before getting started? Like, are there any signals you can look for, or is it more like, oh, we have these connections? There must have been someone in your team who had a good hunch that this was doable. Otherwise, or like I assume so, because otherwise starting at that time just seems like suicide.
Yeah. I mean, high risk, high reward. No, I think, like you said, like there are people on our team that have been through like this race before, so they knew that they knew the fund of funds that do emerging managers. They knew that there were, institutions out there that have, allocate to VC funds. So, before we were going out to fundraise, we were, looking at this puzzle. How are we going to build this like capital formation? Because I believe you want all kinds of mix. Like you want these big institutions and you want these, long-term LPs that can support you in like future funds. But I think like we knew who to talk to like before, but I don't think we knew like how tough it was going to be.
That makes sense.
Like it was, like I said, it's been a lot of hard work, and I don't think, no one could have known like how difficult it was going to be. I don't like even think like the fund of funds were thinking that it was going to take this long for them to fundraise. So, and that's why I also think it's important to think about your LP base, because if you only have majority fund of funds, you have to, time their cycles and their fundraise. And that can also, be difficult. So you want to have a mix. That
makes sense.
Different LPs.
And if we go back to the point, like, what makes Node VC different? I'm a startup, hottest startup in town. I have all the offers. And what's your pitch?
That's good. That's a question. Now I think like our pitch is the team, what we've built before, and that we've hands-on built. So we've been founders and CEOs and CTOs of startups from, the startups IPO. We've been fundraising from VCs ourselves. We've been hands-on building tech products, both hardware and software. We've been hands-on hiring people, firing people, and to just have a partner with you on this journey that is going to be for many years. And it's easy to get someone in. It's more difficult to get someone out, honestly. And I feel like people are missing that sometimes. We're a partner that have been in the trenches. We know what it's like. We want to be the partner where you can call us Tuesday night when shit hits the fan. And we've been there ourselves. And, honestly, we're very fun and good people too. Like there's just this amazing group of people with a heart in the right place. And I think like that's where we can really add value and have a friend in the pond. And then, I have full respect for founder to want to get in these big brand names, 100%, because it's like a little, cred to them. Like, it's good for you. Like, you got the entries in Sequoia. But to also have like a local partner, that can also be very valuable because, and also for us, like this is our first fund, our interest is like super, 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 super aligned with you as Star. We really, really want you to succeed because if you don't, like we might not be able to fundraise and we might not have a job. So we will really put our heart and soul into this.
Yeah, I heard someone say to do well in venture, you have to do well in venture, which I really like. More success breeds more success.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So you're Sweden based, but you're Nordic coverage, and we spoke before, so I'm curious about this. Is this something I've been asking many of the Nordic venture funds, the Scandinavian-based venture funds lately? Is how do they actually cover the other markets? Because I met quite a few funds that have the Scandinavian Nordic coverage, but I in many cases I struggle to understand really how do you give the same attention to, let's say, Denmark and Norway, Finland, Iceland, wherever. If you're not there physically, and this is not just for Node VC, it also goes for funds in the other markets. Do you have, like, being sort of focused on the Nordic region, how do you think about this?
For us, what we've doing for this fund, as you mentioned, we're 8 people in Stockholm, and Stockholm is where we've been, entrepreneurs for the longest time. It's a very, the largest ecosystem in the Nordics. So I think it makes sense for us to be there, but then to access the early stage and in the other markets, to have like you say, like it's so important to have feet on the ground because that's when you know the entrepreneurs, you hear about like who's doing what and stuff. And what we've set up so far is that we have venture partner. Venture partner.
What's a venture partner? Can you just explain that?
Yeah, so we have a venture partner in Denmark, Tanya, and she's super connected in the fintech space and have been an operator in fintech. What she does is like she's not part of the full-time team, but she's part in our deal flow meetings when she has the capacity, and she spends
is it similar to this, like being a venture scout, or is it just different?
I think it's varies like on the person and their setup and their capabilities. Yeah. So we have venture scout in Finland, Margareta, and she's like super connected in the Finnish ecosystem. She's awesome, and I think she's more like on an hourly basis, and like she also like goes to school. So when she has the capacity to attend events or meet co-investors or entrepreneurs, she does that when she has time. So it all depends. We also have advisors, and it's like I think the setup depends on the person's like abilities and like but I think for us it's also important for the full-time team to travel and like have feet on the ground there and be present. So we have in our full-time team, we have 2 people covering Denmark, 2 people Finland, and then it's their job to make sure we see everything in that region and that we attend all the relevant events and that we also host events there. I think that is also something very fun and good ROI actually to be proactive and host dinners or breakfasts for the ecosystem. Then actually, what I've been working a lot on as well is to get LPs in very region because we have around 70 entrepreneurs as LPs in the fund, and they are also a great source of deal flow, market intelligence. They've been entrepreneur before. Maybe they know someone that they've hired that are starting something, or they have a entrepreneur friend that is doing something. So they have an incentive to prioritize us. And then now I'm working on to like how to engage them even more.
It's very interesting. And I was speaking to another venture fund. We were talking exactly about this and the difficulty of getting LPs outside your home market, especially as a first-time fund. So I can imagine it's not easy.
No, it's
One thing
not.
I want to jump a little bit, Rebecca, and because you have worked in investment banking for quite some years, and I've worked in management consulting. So we worked on like probably different sides of the table or similar sides in terms of various transactions. And I know that kind of work often requires a lot of analysis. And I moved from that and then into the very early venture space. And you're a little bit later than what I was. But for me at least, it meant also toning down the long due diligences, if you can put them in plural, I don't know. How's that been for you? Like, just talk me through, you find a good deal. I assume you don't do like a due diligence process like you would when working in, or like, as a banker. How does that work for you? Are you still very analytical? Can you be that early phase? What is it that you look at?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think in my life, I started off in investment banking and then working on these large transactions, these large IPOs and these large M&As. And investment banking it's just your sell side. You're selling something. So you're building marketing material. But then after that, I worked for a family office with a startup with growth investing. And I think that really taught me all these, how to do a financial due diligence, a legal due diligence, a commercial due diligence that I guess you do as a management consulting. And that is super, super valuable right now. Even though we're investing in startups and there might not be that much historic financials to look through. But you're still building like projections for the future and they might not be right. But you still have to sanity check and see, base case, worst case, best case. And also, even though we have like legal people that support us in legal due diligence, to also like in the investment team that how to do a legal due diligence yourself is also very valuable. And also the commercial due diligence to really look at the market and slice and dice and do that analysis. So I think that even though early stage investing is not as like long, like due diligence processes as it is in the later stages, it is still super valuable to have that toolkit and to do as much analysis as you can. But that's also what I love about the early stage.
Let's say you get a pitch deck. What would be, let's say, the 3 most important slides that you would look at?
The team, 100%, because it's in the early stage. They are the one you're backing. They are, they're.
What would you look for in the team? Like, what's the ideal team for you?
For me personally, what I love is to really understand, like, why are you doing this? Like, what makes you quit your day job or like not go into something safer? Like, why are you doing this? And this can be either like you've experienced from doing it before. So you're a serial entrepreneur and in the space, or it can be that like I've met people who've like consulted in the space or worked in space and then they saw a problem and they were like, why aren't not they solving it? And they're like scratching their own itch. So to really on the team slide, like I look for just see like, why are you the team that are going to solve this problem? And what have you previously been through or done that are setting you up to be like overly obsessed with solving it? Because that is something, I mean, I don't think it can like maybe present in the slide, but that is something when I look for when meeting founders, it's, this just obsessiveness, like they're going to make this work, like no matter what. And it's a little like with us, with VC in the beginning, we're so passionate about technology and startups that like, we're fucking going to make it work. Like, even though there's a tough market, that's something I look for in the team as well.
But it's, I'm happy to hear that. It was my experience as well going in. We would do all these analysis, and after a while, the analysis, they help. I think it's also can be a false sense of security, right? But finding those people who are going to stick to the bitter end, hopefully not bitter end, but to stick through, and like finding those profiles. Yeah, we also had that at the very, very top, just finding the right team. If you were to name just quickly, what were 2 other important things? It doesn't have to be slides, but just 2 other important things you would look for if team was the first one.
Yeah, and then just the problem that you're solving. Like, what are you? Why are you doing this? Like, what do you see is missing in the market, and like, what are you solving, and then how you're going to solve it. So, like, how are you going to compete? But then at the same time, like, if you're a good team, you can pivot and you can find another way. But still, like, as an investor, like we're VC, so we take risk, but we need to see and do the analysis to like minimize the risk. So then, and for us, like we need to understand what we're investing in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, I said this, but I've worked in venture capital. Now I'm an operator, but I also do angel investments on the side. Do you have any good advice for me to try to be the best angel I can be? How do I get in on the hottest deals? Are there any, like, from the venture side, from the venture capital side, do's and don'ts? Like, are there angels where you see, ooh, these angels I really like to work with, and these kind of angels, not so much?
No, I love that. And I think in our team, we love angel investors. I think, and also as an angel investor, like you're such a good resource to venture funds. So if I were an angel investor, if I were you, like leverage VC funds more.
Like how would you leverage them?
Like just like, for example, as an angel investor and being an operator, you might be deeply connected in your specific area, or you're going to like certain like industry specific events and meeting people in that sector. And if you run into an entrepreneur that you want to invest in, but it's just you don't have the resources to put like 40 hours into market analysis and competitive analysis, then call a VC fund or invest in a VC fund and then call them. I will do almost anything for our LPs. Like then call and be like, hey, I'm looking at this legal AI startup. Have you seen anything like this? And we're just looking like, oh, yeah, we've seen this and this. Like, okay, what's your view on the market? Oh, this is our view. Leverage as an angel investor, call a VC fund and leverage their like analysis, and also that they're full time. They do this like this their job to meet every startup or to track every startup and to do market analysis. So I think because as an angel you can only do like so much, and also like if you send a deal and then can co-invest with a VC, I mean that's just great for you because like the startup can have more capital, but also for a startup to get in an angel investor that is also connected with the DC funds, then as an angel, you can support in the next funding round by doing a soft intro. So what we're doing at No, we're actually really doubling down on, since we've been angel investors ourselves, we're planning to host angel investor dinners just to like build and nourish that network. I mean, we love angel investors. I think they're awesome. And then, you just have to keep in mind that investing as an angel and in a fund vehicle, you might have different like risk profiles, return horizons and stuff. And so, I mean, even though in a VC wouldn't invest, you can still invest as an angel, and vice versa.
That makes sense.
But yeah,
it's very interesting. Yeah, but the angel sort of word is very interesting because I guess to get in, like, again, the more hot deals you've done, the more relevant you are. I could list quite a few names now that pop up all the time, and you see them getting in on all the hottest deals. So whenever I speak to people, they're like, you need to speak to this person. He or she is just very on everything. And they must have had something to add in the very, like, this is what I'm curious about, like, how to get the hottest deals. You have to start somewhere. You could be super lucky, of course, but most of them have something. And I guess that's, and it could vary. I guess it could be very good operational, or maybe just that you have a really good network. I'm curious to learn. Have you seen anything where you're like, when you look at angels, you want to perhaps invite in for a round? Is there something particular? Is it sometimes that the name is really hot, or is it that they have some operational skill that you want to add in?
Yeah, going back, I think to just look at the hottest deals is like hot in what definition? And me personally, I'm trying to like get out of like the echo chamber of like the VC hype and like, that's hot, and it's like just do my own analysis. And I think for us, it's more value add if you're connected. And I mean, we're the one making decision. If you're an angel investor and you're super connected, like if you're in the hottest deals or not for the day, it doesn't matter. And not to us. And I mean, we will do our own analysis. So I do believe, and it's same for VCs. I believe it's being connected and building your network, and also seeing this network not as transactional but relationships. And maybe you as an angel didn't get into the hot deal because they wanted someone that is like, I don't know, built Klarna or whatever. But you might still have known about it and just that information, and then you sent it to the VC or whatever before like it hit the news or hype, whatever. That is super valuable. So it's
having those sort of notes in the market. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much. It was super interesting to hear about the whole fundraising process and Node VC's take on being a new venture fund in the Nordic market. I am very, very curious to see how this is going to go, but hopefully very promising. And it's great with some more venture capital funds in the Nordics. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Espen. I really enjoy this, and I love that you're doing this. This is just so great, and continue what you're doing. And I just want to say, if anyone wants to follow us, what we're doing, we're very active on LinkedIn, which is also just a great platform. It's like so underestimated for everything. But yeah, you can follow us.
You paid to say that? You have to say it's the ad for LinkedIn. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. Right. And then like if anyone wants to reach out and anything, like I love to. People have helped me so much, and it's just I think I love the Nordics. We're so like. It can't be competitive, but it's also very friendly and cooperative, and I believe that's like our strength. So if anyone wants anything, like you could add me on LinkedIn, Rebecca Sjödin, or email me, rebecca@no.vc.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do you think it was?
It was so much fun. Like I could do this forever. I could just continue to